Shabbat Shalom. You know, if you've been following along with the cycle of Torah readings, you know that we're reading in the book of Exodus about the construction of the Mishkan. The Mishkan being this portable tent that was constructed by the Israelites when they were wandering in the Sinai Peninsula after the Exodus from Egypt. And this basically was a way to contain the presence or the power of God in a way that could be useful to the Israelites as they were going about their daily lives. You see, Mount Sinai was a great revelation of the power of God as well as of the Ten Commandments. And that was like a big, huge lightning flash of divinity that was overwhelming and powerful, but ultimately forgettable because you can't carry these things around with you so easily. They're not so portable. They are one-time events, and they make a huge impression at the time, but you need something that can contain that energy and sustain it over time. That's exactly what the Mishkan, or the tabernacle it's sometimes called in English, was designed to do. This was the place where the Israelites could worship in the prescribed way for those times, which involved animal sacrifice, offerings of incense, offerings of grain at prescribed times under different circumstances, with an elaborate ritual and a priesthood, and a whole system was in place in order to contain and moderate the energy of divinity in a way that would be useful instead of overwhelming or destructive. It's not to say that at times it wasn't overwhelming or destructive. It could get out of hand. Something like the power of a nuclear reactor, unless all the rules are followed very, very precisely and all the different parts are working in the proper way, that also can result in a meltdown from time to time. So what is the modern application of the Mishkan to today? There's a very telling phrase that occurs a few times in the chapters on the Mishkan. In Hebrew, Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham. They shall make me a sanctuary, and I shall dwell within them. Or sometimes translated, I shall dwell among them. Actually, both are good translations, because there is, I would say, an outer sanctuary, an outer Mishkan, and there's also an inner sanctuary as well. What do I mean by this? The sanctuary that the Israelites built in the desert was quite definitely an external kind of sanctuary. It was an actual building, a tent that was made of specific materials and was assembled in a specific way and could be torn down and transported in a specific way as well. But the whole point of the external Mishkan was so that each individual Israelite could build within themselves an internal Mishkan, a place for God to dwell and live within them. This, I think, is the essence of all religious and spiritual life, so that we are able to construct our own personal Mishkan, that God can dwell not only among us, but within us, which is to say, deep within us, in a place that informs our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions, and ultimately our actions. I think too much of the time we are book dependent when it comes to doing the right thing. Or maybe we're society dependent. We behave according to the expectations of society. But ultimately, I would say that the Torah is written within us. It says in the Torah itself, Lo bashamayim hi. The Torah is not in heaven. It's rather right here, right at hand, in what's deepest and most familiar and most intimate to us all, which is our own self, our own heart and mind and spirit. So, how do we build this Mishkan for ourselves? That's the question. It's actually a complicated answer, which I don't really have time to go into in detail now, but I will say this. One builds the Mishkan by the kind of life that one lives. And in building that Mishkan, it's very much like the movie about the Iowa cornfields. If you build it, he will come. If you build this Mishkan, if you build it in a right way, in a stable way, God will come. God will inhabit that sanctuary. God willing, God will inhabit that life. God will be in a position to influence your life for the maximum of blessing and goodness and happiness and fulfillment on all levels. And may this be true for all of us And let us all say Amen and Shabbat Shalom. And I look forward to seeing you in synagogue very soon.